A man has just been arrested after punching a 9-year-old girl in Grand Central Station. Just walked up to a 9-year-old girl and sucker punched her in the face. This guy, his name is Jean Carlos Zarzuela. He's 30 years old, punched the 9-year-old girl. But that's not the whole story. It's New York. Crazy things happen in New York, right? I think he's a homeless guy. He's obviously some kind of lunatic, probably on drugs. The crazy part of this story is that he sucker punched the 9-year-old girl after he was arrested and released for punching another woman. That's the crazy part here. This guy, this maniac, homeless bum, goes up, punches a woman in the face, allegedly. I have to say allegedly every single time we mention anything about this guy's reported activities. Then gets arrested. Then, because it's New York City, just gets released. And then does it again in a more egregious way because he sucker punches, allegedly, a 9-year-old girl at Grand Central Station. Why is this happening? This was obviously, at least the punching of the 9-year-old was totally preventable. Why is it happening? It's happening because we're not allowed to acknowledge patterns. That's why. Because liberalism and political correctness in particular, now we call it wokeism, and this has now been written into our law, and the enforcement of our law or the non-enforcement of our law prohibits us from acknowledging patterns. Criminals tend to commit crime. We can't say, how dare you suggest that a man who goes up and punches a woman on the street might do that sort of thing again? No. No reason to believe that. Release the man. Let him out of there. No. That's anti-criminal discrimination. This is what happened in New York with stop and frisk. Do you remember the stop and frisk policy? This was about 10 years ago, maybe a little bit more now, under the mayoralty of Mike Bloomberg, building on the crime crackdown policies of Rudy Giuliani, the best mayor in the history of New York City. They had this policy, stop and frisk. Stop and frisk was when the cops would go into bad neighborhoods and stop criminals from committing crimes. That was what stop and frisk was. And everyone was up in arms in New York. All the liberals, rather, were up in arms because it was allegedly racist. Why was it racist? Well, because these cops were going into predominantly Black and Hispanic neighborhoods, and they were stopping and frisking predominantly Black and Hispanic people who were often criminals. So it's racist right on its face, right? Now, what the liberals did not acknowledge was that it's true. The neighborhoods were predominantly Black and Hispanic, and the criminals predominantly were Black and Hispanic. Also, the people calling the police, asking for protection, were predominantly Black and Hispanic, and the cops in New York Police Department were predominantly Black and Hispanic. It's a majority-minority police force. But the focus was only ever on the criminals. So they said, oh, no, this is discrimination. Well, what about the poor innocent people who were the same race as the criminals, who wanted protection from the criminals who were the same race? No, you can't. You can't. How dare you profile people? Any police work, any kind of law enforcement requires profiling people. Otherwise, you're just going to be stopping everybody, or you're going to stop nobody. And that is what's going on in New York right now. It's like the TSA. The fact that I stand in the TSA line at the airport and some old granny from, Peoria gets pulled out of line and frisked is a complete joke. Why does that happen? Even I sort of understand why I would get pulled out of line. I'm a roughly fighting age guy, I don't know. Maybe I look a little bit Middle Eastern, or of Sicilian descent. It's a little ethnically ambiguous. Okay, I mean, what's the point of the TSA? The TSA is there to stop Middle Eastern Muslim terrorists from blowing up airplanes. That's why we have the TSA regime. But we're not allowed to say that. We're not allowed to notice any patterns. So we have to pull out the Midwestern granny and we got to frisk 9-month-old babies. All for what? To pretend that it's ever those people who blow up the planes? It's not. But we're not allowed to recognize any kind of patterns at all. Or we necessarily do recognize them, but we're not allowed to acknowledge them. And so what's the consequence of that? The criminals' feelings don't get hurt? That's it? 9-year-old girls get punched in the face in Grand Central Station? Okay, well, congratulations. Great job, guys. Right now, go to Genucel.com/Knowles, letter Y, letter T. Gen 90 is the skincare breakthrough from Genucel that not only addresses those pesky bags and puffiness under your eyes, but does so instantly. No more worrying about the effects of sleepless nights, stress, or seasonal allergies on your appearance. Gen 90 is here to provide immediate relief. Gen 90 instantly reduces the appearance of looking older. It is a paraben-free, silky smooth solution. Right now, you will not only get Genucel's classic under-eye bags and puffiness serum with every Gen 90 order, but also their luxurious Genucel XV, a collagen builder moisturizer with vitamin C and hyaluronic acid in a pure natural base for stunning results day after day. Go to Genucel.com/Knowles, letter T, right now for incredible packages over 50% off during Genucel's spring sale. See your results or get your money back. Order right now, get a free limited edition spa box, which also has bonus gifts and free shipping. Go to Genucel.com/Knowles, letter T. That is Genucel.com/Knowles, letter T. A substitute teacher has been arrested after sleeping with a 17-year-old student. How many times do we get this story? This one, it's always in the comments section, oh man, where were those teachers when I was in school, right? This one's a little less funny in the sense that often these stories, they make it to the news because it's, a 22-year-old teacher and an 18-year-old student. You say, well, they're actually so close in age, 17-year-old student or something. They're so close in age, maybe it's not quite as weird. Well, here, it's a little clearer why this kind of relationship is so disordered. It's this woman who's 45 years old. They discovered her and a 17-year-old student undressed in her Honda Pilot, parked at a dead-end road at 3 o'clock in the morning. And so there you say, okay, 45 and 17. Now it's a little harder to joke about this. 22 and 18 is one thing, but 45 and 17, I don't know, man. And then the cops find these two, and the kid, the 17-year-old, just is mostly naked, drives off in the car, and then crashes the car, gets out, runs, and then the cops finally find him about an hour later. The kid's obviously a little bit shaken up about this. The reason that these stories really are never funny, despite all of the comments of where were these teachers when I was a kid, is because I can't help but notice virtually all the people involved in weird sex stuff as adults had some weird sex stuff happen to them when they were young. Whether we're talking about, really direct, particularly egregious stuff, or whether we're just talking about exposure to pornography or bad relationships or whatever. I can't help but notice that. This stuff really can scandalize people. It really can traumatize people. This is the one area where I think the libs consistently say something that is true about sex. They're always talking about sex. It's not me. It's not me. Even despite the fact that we cover weird sex stuff on the show with some regularity, I'm not the one making up these stories, right? It's the libs who are making these into news stories. I'm just observing them. So don't blame me. You got to blame the libs who are the aggressors in the sexual revolution and in the culture war. But when the libs say, sex is really important and that's why we need to think about it and talk about it all the time, they're right in that it is important. It is important. You're right. Because the distinction between the sexes is the fundamental distinction within human nature. So yeah, it is important. You're right. And when people are indoctrinated in crazy sexual ideas as kids, which is what the libs are trying to do all the way down to elementary school and succeeding at doing. And then when the kids are trained in bad sexual habits, which the libs are also training them in doing, not just 45-year-old substitute teachers, but just broadly in our culture, all sorts of sexual education these days is cultivating these bad habits. And then the rise of teenage culture and a lot of unsupervised time between teenagers and the notion that sex is not a big deal and you should, have a lot of it when you're really young and everything, even outside of marriage. That's cultivating moral and intellectual, you wouldn't say virtues, you would just say habits that are really going to mess you up. They're going to lead to a lot more of this weird stuff that we see so prevalent in society. That was really good, wasn't it? We agree. Now make sure you ring the bell, subscribe to the Michael Knowles YouTube channel, and we will see you next time.